We're joined now by Ann Coulter, best-selling New York Times author, and her latest book is Resistance is Futile, and she's joining us on the line. Ann, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Thank you for posting your bike accident video, Howie.
Did I amuse you, Ann?
Well, yes, you did. You know, it is one of the greatest bike accident videos I've ever seen, because I keep watching it over and over again, backing it up, watching it in slow motion. I bike a lot, as you know. I've had completely retarded accidents, as you also know, but I can't figure out what you're doing there. You're just going along fine and just collapse.
We've been trying to figure it out.
I'm taking
for weeks,
off
Ann.
I have my reading glasses on, and I suddenly say, I'm about to go onto the bike path with my reading glasses. I don't need them on, so I'm going to take them off with my right hand. And that was a big mistake. I mean, it would have been a big mistake trying to take them off with my left hand, but it's just that was what I did.
Okay, well, what's great about the video is that you cannot see that portion of it, so it is just totally Dorcas Erectus.
Well, what can I say? I'm sunk by the video. You know, I can't.
No, it shows a real streak of masculinity that you're willing to post that video.
I think, you know, if I tried to explain it, people would think I had some darker thing I was trying to hide. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
no,
I
it totally makes sense. I've done similar boneheaded maneuvers, much like driving a car. Don't get tired of your playlist. Don't decide it's time to change it when you're going 30 miles per hour on a bicycle. It turns out that's not a good idea. Don't take your glasses off.
Right.
Distracted driving is very dangerous.
Right. I will not make that mistake again. And anyway, listen, let me let you say something about George H.W. Bush, 41, if you want to say something. Everybody else is commenting on him. What did you think of him as a president, a human being, etc.?
Well, not much, which is why you may have noticed I haven't been tweeting a lot. I will say the best thing I can say about him is I think this has finally put an end to the McCain funeral. They need to move McCain out to get George W. Bush's body lying in state. He also kind of reminds me, I mean, the good things about Bush, and that's obviously what we should be concentrating on, it was all when he was younger. He really was a very impressive young man, going to prep school, to the Navy, to his flying feats in the Navy, to Yale, marrying Barbara, young family. And it reminds me, this luckily doesn't always happen, but some people peak too early. Have you ever noticed that, like at college or law school?
Oh, yeah.
Little stud, top of the class, everything's great. They don't always. Sometimes most likely to succeed actually does succeed. But sometimes you just peaked too early. You should have screwed off.
Well, but I mean, he got to be president of the United States. I mean, again, it was an interesting set of circumstances. But still, I mean, if you get to be president of the United States, you've attained a certain level of success, haven't you?
Okay, fine, Howie. If you're going to play good cop, Ann will play bad cop and point out that, you know, much like Trump, and I hope Trump notices this, I mean, there were other flaws, but the central flaw, the story, the lesson, the moral of the Bush presidency is you betray your central campaign promise and you leave no legacy at all. What is the legacy of the Bush presidency? He starts a war in Iraq, doesn't finish it. The one of the many disastrous pieces of legislation passed in the last 50 years is the Americans with Disabilities Act.
You're right.
Ruining small libraries throughout America. Because they don't have, you know, all the ramps. These quaint little libraries throughout New England have now been either closed, shuttered, or crapped up.
How about all those scamsters in New York City that go into bridal shops when they weigh 300 pounds and they say, I can't get into the bridal shop. Remember that?
And sue.
Yeah, and then they sue.
Yeah,
right.
It's like a trial lawyer's full employment act. And incidentally, one of my best friends is legally blind. He can walk around by himself. He can ski. But those curb, they at the curbs they have all of those wheelchair accessible areas. It's hell for the blind. It's a classic example of good intentions ending up having a bad effect. But by and large, his political career was mostly. Okay. Look,
well, Ann,
It's mostly holding his finger to the wind. He calls, Reagan's economics, which, by the way, was magnificently successful. He slashed his taxes every year, and the taxes were way higher than they were now. Every year, taxes went down. Every year, the Treasury took in more money than the year before. The spending was the problem. That's why we ended up with the deficit. He would agree to Tip O'Neill increasing spending on domestic programs, so that Reagan could get more spending on defense, which again back then was necessary. It was a different time. Cold War.
And I'm going to give you, though, his most remarkable political achievement. I wrote about this yesterday, and it means more for those of us in Massachusetts. He defeated Michael Dukakis for the presidency of the United States. You don't understand how bad the Dukakis presidency would have been, Ann. I don't think.
Yes, I do. There was that. I think anyone following on Reagan, any Republican, Reagan was so successful, could have beaten pretty much any Democrat then. I mean, the Reagan presidency was stunning. It was also demographically a much different country. So any Republican could have beaten any Democrat, but Dukakis was a particularly bad candidate.
Yes, he was. Well, listen, let's move on to something else. This has been and we haven't talked much about this.
And he was friends with Bill Clinton. I'm sorry, we can't drop that. The best thing I ever heard about Barbara Bush, I heard in some of these memorials about George Bush. Apparently, Barbara Bush was not wild about her husband's friendship with the horny hick, and I am completely foursquare with Barbara on that one. I mean, this isn't Dukakis. This isn't Walter Mondale. It's a guy who used a cigar to perform a sodomic act on an intern on Easter Sunday. And this is the guy you're going around saying, oh, I'm like his second father.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was writing that column over the weekend, saying, well, Dukakis, I thought about writing this. Well, Dukakis was a dope, and he beat the dope, but then he ran against the degenerate, and he lost to the degenerate. There was a big difference. You're right about that. But, Ann, I want to move on to another topic that we haven't been hitting recently. There have been a couple of particularly egregious examples in the last few days. Campus fake hate crimes. Have you been noticing there's another upturn in them?
Yes, I have not concentrated on this, but thank you, Howie. You see, this is why I can count on you when I'm sleeping. No, I especially like the lady who teaches Holocaust studies, who's constantly having swastikas show up on her dorm room, or rather, faculty door.
Right.
What's interesting about all these racist hate crimes, I'm sorry, this is an obvious point, but it bears saying, is that they happen in all the most liberal areas of the country. It's always a college campus.
Yeah, the thing was, and the one at Drake today, it was an 18-year-old freshman, and they had these photographs of thousands of people at these demonstrations. Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, does not stand for racism. All this, and the president said, "Well, yeah, this is unfortunate, but at least it got a dialogue going." And I thought to myself, what the hell kind of dialogue do you have? How many more of these fake hate crimes do we have to have before somebody's going to actually get charged? Don't you think that the people who write this graffiti and trying to make them seem victims? I mean, aren't they committing a hate crime, man? How is it any different?
Yes, they are. They're ginning up hatred toward. Generally, the attempt is, sorry, you're always the scapegoat, Howie. White men, particularly white men, Trump supporters. But yeah, of course, that's hateful. And what's kind of amazing is how long it's been going. When I was a wee child, my first year in law school, I remember there was some allegedly racist graffiti on the black students, not at law school, but the undergrad students, their little club area. And one of my older friends, who had been a lefty, SDS at Columbia in the 60s, he immediately, the moment it broke, said, "I promise you they did this to themselves." And of course there's an investigation and it came out, and yes, they had done it to themselves. So this is how long this has been going on. The only shock about a swastika or a noose showing up on a college campus would be if an actual racist put it there.
Right. Well, they had
that would be the new news.
They had the incident at Harvard University. You know, it's still an unsolved hate crime, but all evidence points towards not white males. Let me put it that way. And they just get a total pass. That's what I can't believe. You know, this woman at Drake University. There's a black lacrosse player who claims he was a victim of it. Somewhere I think in Maryland. I mean, nobody ever gets suspended. They maybe have to go to therapy or something for it. You know?
No, it's the same thing with the false claims of rape, and then you wonder why it keeps happening. If there are never any consequences, occasionally there are in the fake rape cases, but as we've discussed many times, your listeners can probably recite this with me. We can all say it together. The Duke lacrosse accuser who made up the story about the gang rape went on to, because she wasn't punished for that, for tearing the entire country upside down for 6 months, nearly destroying these boys' lives, and actually, I mean, really harming the lacrosse coach, the lacrosse team, the lacrosse
destroyed
program.
His career.
All of that, she went on, no consequences whatsoever, she went on to kill her boyfriend.
Right.
Stabbing him to death in the bathtub.
Oh, but
so that's great. Yeah, you did her a really good favor.
And there was an MS-13 gangbanger here in Boston last week. Perverso is his name. But that's his nickname. And they
I'd like to meet the immigration official who admitted Perverso.
Well, Perverso was up over and over again for carrying knives, and the immigration judge finally not only cut Perverso loose, but gave him a green card. And do you know what happened a month later, Han? Perverso was bragging about how he chopped up a 15-year-old boy that they thought was ratting them out to the cops like a cow. He said, "We cut him like a cow."
If only Trump had been elected president, we could put an end to this.
I don't know what this immigration judge, though, Ann, what would you do about him? I assume that this guy predates Trump. You know, I mean, what are you going to do?
Impeachment hearings. Okay, that's not Trump alone, but he's supposed to be the great negotiator. He was the one who won. It wasn't Mitt Romney. It wasn't Paul Ryan. He ought to start demanding, and he can certainly. I mean, one of the things he does very well, he can do some things on his own, like build the wall and impose an immigration moratorium. But the things that he can do, he's pretty good at publicizing stories. He could turn Perverso here, whom I've never heard of, turn him into the next Kate Steinle story and put pressure on Republicans to impeach these immigration judges.
I'll send you. I'm going to do a column on Perverso for tomorrow, and I'll send you all the. I've got a 37-page detention statement too, Ann. You'll enjoy it. It's all spelled out.
And by the way, that's all I know. I mean, there may have been other things he could have done. Like was he here legally or illegally?
Illegally, of course. He's an MS-13 gangbanger.
Okay, so he could have been deported.
Yeah, no, but they tried over and over again, and they get cut loose here in Massachusetts. Ann, I got a break, but Ann's book is Resistance is Futile, and I will send you all the Perverso stuff in the next day or so, Ann. I'm Howie Carr.